Have you ever had the argument at your table about whether guns should be included in your sword and sorcery or high fantasy TTRPG campaign? We have, and they often devolve into arguments about the historical accuracy of whether or not they existed in that time. There's a meme going around now about an adventuring party consisting of a gunslinger from the American West, a wandering Japanese Ronin, a Victorian gentleman, and an old retired French pirate being historically viable because there was a moment in history when all those characters could be found at the same time. What if we told you that you're looking at it through the wrong lens? Sword and sorcery TTRPGs don't take place at any point in our history. They take place in whole other worlds, fantasy worlds with their own rules and their own histories. They aren't back then, they're over there. Once you shift your mental framework to look at it through that lens, it can help settle things out on the issue, and a lot of other things that come up as well. Today, we're going to talk about some world building and combining genres in TTRPGs, but before we get into that, please consider liking the video, sharing it with other people who love TTRPGs, and hitting the subscribe button. You can smash the subscribe button if hitting it is too placid for your style. If you really like us, hit the notification bell, and if you really don't like us, hit the notification bell anyway, just so you know when not to watch our stuff. Hi, my name is Seth, and I'm one of the creators and developers of Altered World, a tabletop role-playing game that gives players options to play in a sword and sorcery setting, or cyberpunk, or horror, or noir, or modern, or sci-fi, or, more importantly, any blend of these that suits your fancy. So Travis and I were talking about concepts in sword and sorcery. Now personally, I think it tends to fall apart when you start adding technological options more advanced than some basic blacksmithing and medieval level engineering. That's why I tend to disfavor classes like gunslinger and artificer in a strictly sword and sorcery setting. I got into an argument with a player one time when I tried to introduce something they thought was too advanced for the sword and sorcery setting we were in. He exclaimed, "They didn't have that kind of thing back then." Back then, that's what stuck with me. Here's the thing. We're talking about a fantasy world with low levels of scientific technology, and a lot of times we equate that to medieval times. But make no mistake, fantasy worlds are not back then. They're over there. They don't exist at some point in our past. They're another world entirely. And you can figure this however you like. Shape your world in a way that works for you. But here's what I think about. And you can take your pick or go a completely different route. I think in a high fantasy world where magic works, then there would simply be less incentive to develop fields like engineering that would produce higher orders of technology. Who needs a cell phone when you can use a sending spell or telepathy? Alternatively, what if, because magic works, the laws of physics function differently and technology just can't develop past a certain point? What do you think? Why doesn't technology prevail in your fantasy world? Is it because it hasn't been invented yet, or because the laws of physics don't work the same, or a divine or maybe an infernal curse keeps anything more advanced from medieval level tech from working? Could be something else entirely? Let us know in the comments what you think. Magic and logic are usually not friends, so trying to apply logic and critical thinking to fantasy sometimes feels like trying to get oil and vinegar to mix. You might get them to rest one on top of the other, and if you force it, you can get them to mix, but they don't like it, and they're going to separate if you give them time. So what does that mean? Logically, we know that technology prevails and propagates over time. Different kinds of technologies compete in the real world, and the superior technology wins. It becomes dominant, and then it's abandoned when a new, better technology supplants it. Think about a rock. Pretty low-level tech, right? But attach a rock to the end of a stick, and things get more interesting. Find a way to sharpen the rock, and new possibilities open up. People tend to innovate. Before long, you've got guns, rocket ships, and AI littering up the place. In a high fantasy setting, what prevents that? Is magic common enough that there's no incentive to develop technology? Or is there some other force that keeps technology from marching down the road of progress? And what does this have to do with Altered World, anyway? Although you can play a purely high fantasy sword and sorcery game in Altered World, The main setting combines super advanced science fiction level technology and magic. NAOSH individuals, those with some kind of magic, account for maybe 3% of the world's population. Now that might be overrepresented in the player population, but that's because players can choose that route at character creation, and it's fun. And it's an imagination game where you can create what you want. So go ahead, make a ninja or a mage or whatever. It's your game. Play the way you want. But most folks in the game won't have ready access to supernatural powers. Magic items and services might be for sale, but they cost. And in a world like that, technology advances. For most folks, technology offers solutions that would seem magical in a fantasy setting with medieval level tech. Who needs to find a wizard to ask them to cast a sending spell when you have a cell phone in your pocket? In Altered World, tech and magic exist side by side because the world developed both paths, and both are viable. And we'd like to invite you to check it out. We think you'll have a lot of fun exploring the back alleys of lower levels of new tech, soaring above the riffraff and the megas up on the surface, or finding your metal out in the wild side. If you think you've got what it takes to experience new adventures over there, then come, alter your world. You can follow us on Instagram, subscribe to our YouTube, and join our Discord to learn more about the lore of Altered World, chime in about the philosophy of gaming, and more. Thanks for taking time to watch and think about these ideas with us. If you know someone who likes TTRPGs, then go ahead and share this video with them. That really helps spread the word about Altered World and grows the channel. We'll see you in new tech.